And just look at what is in front of you. And he compares, he actually, the Apostle Paul actually decides that, you know what, you need to judge for yourself who is true, who is a true Christian. You need to judge for yourself who is a true teacher between me and these apostles. And he mentions three things that we need to look at when we look at and judge our preachers. And I think this is very profound, this is very important, these three things. Number one, he says, look at how I have used my authority. I didn't use my authority to bully you. I didn't use my authority for selfish gains. I didn't use my authority to destroy you. But I've used my authority to build you up. Do you think, guys, this is a very important thing to look at when you're assessing preachers and leaders? Look at how they use their authority. Do they use it to build the church? Do they use it for their own gains, to destroy the church? I think that for me is very important, and that you find in verse 8. It says, for even if I boast somewhat further about our authority, which the Lord gave for building you up and not for destroying you, I will not be put to shame. Who gave them the authority? It's the Lord. Who gave Jesus the authority? Who gave Jesus the authority? Us. We voted him into power. Ne? Yeah, like you're voting for your Cyril Ramaphosa. Who gave Jesus power? It's God. He says, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to who? To me. To do what? To advance my own personal agendas? No. He says, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. To do what? He uses that authority, says, therefore go and make disciples of all nations. Ne? Is that a good way of using authority? Yeah. Do you want to assess your husband or your wife? How do they use their authority? Sister Dipu, how does Brother Tabo use his authority? It's my house, ne? Sister Van, how does Brother Justice use his authority? Don't forget who is the head of the house. Eh? Guys, look at your leaders. Look at how they are using the authority that God gave them. Do they use it for the betterment of the church, or do they use it for selfish gains? At Hilltop, look at our leaders. How do they use their authority? How do they use the authority at Hilltop? Yeah, give them feedback. It's time. Ne? How do they use authority? Do we use it for our own selfish gains? Yeah, you'll say no, because I'm in front. Yeah, that's how we need to look at it. Paul says, I didn't use it to destroy. But these guys, what did they do? They only destroyed the church. They only used their authority to destroy the church. Actually, in 1 Corinthians chapter 4, he talks about them. Chapter 3, verse 17, he says, if any man destroys the temple of God, God will destroy him. For the temple of God is holy, and that is what you are. So these people used their authority to destroy the church. So I think that's very important. He looks at that, and that is very important. The second yardstick that he uses is the yardstick of starting from verse 12. He says, for we are not bold to class or compare ourselves with some of those who commend themselves. But when they measure themselves by themselves and compare themselves with themselves, they are without understanding. Hey, he's like rhyming here, ne? Listen to this, guys. Paul says, for when we compare ourselves with some of those who commend themselves, but when they measure themselves by themselves and compare themselves with themselves, they are without understanding. Wow. Beautiful, eh? I mean, Paul goes to great lengths to explain a simple fact. And what is that simple fact that the Apostle Paul is saying? He said, number one, look at how they use authority. Number two, look at the standard they use to measure themselves. He says the standard they use to measure themselves is what? Themselves. In other words, he says they're measuring themselves based on themselves. They are comparing themselves with themselves. This is lovely, Brother Martin. Eh? And listen to what he says. He says, if you do that, you are not wise. You lack understanding. If you are going to compare yourself with yourselves, in other words, if you are going to compare yourself with yourself, or if you are going to compare yourself with others, you are not wise. What is the opposite of wise? Don't tell me. If you are going to do that, brethren, you are certainly not wise. Who must we compare ourselves with? Which standard must we use to measure ourselves? Yeah, when you measure yourself with yourselves, with others in the church, it's easy for you to think, but I'm better. Compared to Sister Nchitungul, I'm really better. Eh? Yeah, if you compare yourself with Martin, Brother Martin, I feel better. When I compare myself with you, at least, guys. And what does Paul say? To do that is not wise. Actually, the standard we ought to be using is Christ, isn't it? Because that will humble you. You see, when you compare yourself with Christ, you'll be humbled, isn't it? Look at his life. Read the Gospels. The life of Christ. The things he said. You know, in America, they had this thing, what will Jesus do? Ne? WWJD. Ne? If Jesus was here, what will he do? Have you ever asked yourself that question? When you're confronted with a situation, what will Jesus do? Or what will Jesus say? Compare yourself with what? With Christ. Actually, in the past, they used to say, love your neighbor like you love yourself. Love your neighbor like you love who? Some of us don't love ourselves. So if you're going to use you as a yardstick of loving your neighbor, But then he says, a new command I give you. Love one another like Christ loved the church, isn't it? Is that a new command? Is the standard raised higher? The bar is higher. Immediately when you evaluate yourself based on Christ, I'm telling you, you will be humble. There's no way you can be arrogant, isn't it? So, brethren, we need to learn to evaluate ourselves. Our standard is Christ. Paul says in the book of 1 Corinthians 11, verse 1, follow me, for I follow who? I follow Christ. Sister, don't measure yourself up based on your husband. Ne? Yeah, don't do it. Measure yourself based on who? On Christ. So Paul is saying, look at these guys. Not only do they abuse their authority, but they also measure themselves with themselves. And that's what we like saying. Don't compete with others, compete with yourself, isn't it? And that is not wise. Verse 13. But we will not boast beyond our measure, but within the measure of the sphere which God apportioned to us as a measure, to reach even as far as you. What portion, what measure did God give them? Brethren, stick to your lane, innit? Stick to your lane. There is a measure. There is something that God gave you, ne? That He did not give who? Justice. Ne? There is something that God gave justice that He didn't give who? You. Stay there. God had given the Apostle Paul to focus on who? The Gentiles. Galatians chapter 2 verse 9. He talks about the sphere that God gave him. Acts chapter 15 talks about the very same thing. The church in Jerusalem acknowledged that Paul is busy with the what? The Gentiles. Peter was a minister to where? To the Jews, isn't it? Paul was a minister to the Gentiles. And so what does Paul say here in verse 13? Paul says, but we will not boast beyond our measure, but within the measure of the sphere which God apportioned to us as a measure, to reach even as far as you. What is the Apostle Paul saying? The Apostle Paul is saying, wow, I will boast about the area that God gave me. And he says, you know, God is so amazing. Not only did God give me this area, but it is what God gave me is far reaching. It even goes to you. It even impacts you as the Corinthians. Wow. That's what we need to boast about. We need to boast about the work that God has given us. Wow. And I made this example even last time. I said, wow. I boast about the fact that I preach at Hilltop, where you have CAs, where you have what? Doctors. No, we don't have doctors. I'm sorry. At Hilltop, we don't have a doctor. Do you have a doctor at Hilltop? Do you have a doctor at Hilltop? No, we have a specialist. It's not just a doctor. He got his degree of being a doctor and beyond. Wow, I preach in front of business moguls. Do you know businessmen at Hilltop, guys? Wow, I preach in front of government officials. They are not corrupt, those at Hilltop. Man, I preach in front of a lecturer, my lecturer. Do you know who's my lecturer? Yeah, Brother Chris was my lecturer. And now I'm teaching him. Oh, God is great. Wow. I mean, this is what Paul is saying. Paul is saying we will boast about the work that God gave us. But not only that, because it has far-reaching impact. It even impacts as far as you, the Corinthians. Man, the work God gave us at Hilltop is amazing, guys. I attended a funeral in Venda last year. Guys, I looked on my left, on my right, in front of me. Actually, it was your family's funeral. The whole graveyard. I think not half, maybe I'm exaggerating. I mean, I saw maybe 50 people who've once been at Hilltop at some stage or the other. And guys, do you know how embarrassing it is? They come to you, hey, Brother Justice, you forgot about this, isn't it? You forgot the name. Hi, sister, how are you? Man, the work that God gave us at Hilltop, don't underestimate it, Brother Tam, wasn't it? Don't underestimate it, Brother Martin. Don't underestimate it, my leader, because it has far-reaching consequences. We are able to touch generations and generations of students. Do you know how many people have? No, some of you think Hilltop, we have 100 and how many people? 110 people, ne? No, like that preacher in Pretoria, we even count those who were there 5 years back. Ne? Those who were there, I mean, Hilltop is big. I want to challenge the leaders of this congregation. You know, I want to challenge you to do what? Start doing a, what you call, not a reunion. Ne? What is it? 10 years, what is it? How many years? We don't even know how many years we've been in. Maybe we celebrate how many years? Celebrate 20 years in existence. The first time I came, it was in 2001. So I've been here at Hilltop since 2001, as a first year student, 2001. So some have been here since 2000. This is the only person who can break that has been here longer than me. I mean, imagine if we were to say, it's how many years? 2000, there 2000 is how many years? 19 years, ne? Next year, let's celebrate and say, with 20 years of existence of Hilltop Church of Christ. Guys, I'm telling you, the people you will see, we will not be able to accommodate them, isn't it? Can you see how far-reaching our work is now? The work is big. So the Apostle Paul is saying, how do these other guys boast? They are not boasting about what God has done. They are boasting about who? Themselves. Listen to what he says in verse 4. But we will not boast beyond our measure, but within the measure of the sphere which God apportioned to us as a measure, to reach even as far as you. Verse 14, for we are not overextending ourselves as if we did not reach to you. For we were the first to come even as far as you in the gospel. When you boast, this is acceptable boasting. There is an unacceptable boasting. What is unacceptable boasting? You boast about your wisdom, ne? About your riches, ne? And about your... What else do people boast about? Successes, ne? Yeah. We need to boast about what the Lord has done through us, isn't it? If there's one acceptable way of boasting, is for you to boast about what God has done. Go to Jeremiah chapter 9, you will see Jeremiah talks about it. He says there are those people who boast about their accomplishments, who boast about their wisdom, who boast about their own power. But he says, we boast in the Lord. Is it acceptable to boast about the cross? Boast about the cross. Is it acceptable to boast about the fact that you are a child of God? Yeah. It's cool to be a Christian, isn't it? Even at VETS, ne? Even in the dining hall, you must pray, ne? For food. Ne? Some of you are not convinced. Imagine Brother just praying in front of other... No. It's a far-fetched possibility. So Paul is saying the difference between him and these guys is that they boast about themselves, but he boasts about what God has accomplished. That's what we need to be boasting about. The work, the opportunities God has given us, the privilege that God has given us to serve in his vineyard. For me, that's we brag about Hilltop. Everywhere we go, people are tired of Hilltop. Ne? Have you ever been to say, every time Hilltoppers come, I went to the young adults. I'm telling you, immediately when you're one sister, listen to what one sister from Hilltop said. He said, Brother Justice, Pella, don't forget to brag about Hilltop when you're in front. Imagine. People are encouraging me to boast, my brother. He says, Pella, other preachers are boasting about where they come from. Please don't forget. Ne? We are proud of being from Hilltop. This is a proud place. I'm proud of Hilltop, man. I'm proud. Brother Chris is proud. You know of what? Of the giving at Hilltop. Ne? Brother Chris is always bragging. Ne? Yeah, you should see Hilltop. Brother Langakwe is also proud of millionaires. Ne? He says, we're talking about millions, eh? That's great, man. We need to brag. We need to boast about what God is accomplishing. So these other guys, they focus on themselves, but he focuses on the actual work. But what about the actual work, which is my focus today? What is it about the actual work that we need to focus on? Why should we boast about the work? Why should we boast about the work? You know what is? Do you like a person who boasts about his accomplishments? Do you like to be around those people? Who likes being around those people? I mean, even when you don't ask them, they tell you. You greet them. Hey, my brother, how are you? I'm okay. This is Justice. I'm Dr. Justice. I studied at, Michigan University in the United States. Even the accent changes. In the United States of America, that's where I studied, man. It was really hard there, man. I studied there for 7 years, man. Who asked? They like boasting about their own what? Accomplishments. Do you know why don't you like it when people boast about their own accomplishments? Have you ever sat down and thought through why you don't like it when other people are boasting about their own accomplishments? Or Nje, I don't like it, Nje. Yeah, I know the Nje answers. Yeah, Nje. Why? Nje. I just don't like it. Guys, why do you hate it? Why do we, as a child of God, why do we hate it when other people are bragging about their accomplishments?
From my side, I just feel like, firstly, they make the world very small.
They make the world?
The world very small.
Okay.
Because when you boast about yourself, it's all about this people, but if you start breaking about what God has done,
Yeah.
it's like you see, like this, you can see it as like, if you're moving from an unbeliever, that there's more opportunity, there's a lot that I still need to
Wow.
learn. You will see a bigger picture.
Wow.
But when you're yourself,
So you're in a small world when you boast about your own achievements. All you see is yourself, isn't it? You can't see beyond yourself and your accomplishments. Okay, that's a good point. What do others think? Why is it such a turn-off? Sisters, I hope it's a turn-off. Yeah, because with some sisters, they like it. When you brag, hey, this is my Mercedes Benz, isn't it? Even if it's... Okay, fine. It's fine. Why is it such a turn-off when other people are bragging? Yes?
I think it's sort of a declaration that you are lesser than.
Yeah, you are actually telling others, I'm bigger than you. Ne? You are talking over them. Ne? It's very interesting. What do others think? Why does it disgust us when people brag about their accomplishments? Yes, ma'am.
because they make it seem as though they did it all by themselves.
Wow.
Without anyone else.
Wow. When a person is bragging about their own accomplishments, usually, which famous word do they use? I did all these things. They become I specialists. Ne? I did all these things. You remember Nebuchadnezzar? Isn't it I who built this? Man, he built the hanging gardens for his wife. Ne? They were one of the 7 wonders of his time. The gardens were like amazing. He says, isn't it I who built all this? Eh? What did God do? He was humbled, didn't he? He was made to eat humble pie. The difference between his pie and our pie is that ours has meat. His has grass pie. I think this is big, guys. We mustn't be disgusted when we see a person who brags about his own accomplishments because we just don't like it. That's not reason enough. Ne? I just don't like it. It rubs me in the wrong way. No, it's not about you. And you know what it must be about? It steals the glory away from God, isn't it? That should be our biggest reason why we don't like people who brag. Because it takes God out of the picture. And it is saying it's you yourself and your strength that has accomplished all that you have done. Can you see the difference now? Not nje, I just don't like them nje. No, because we don't like it because of what it does. Ne? It removes God from the picture. Brethren, everything we have is from God. Ne? Even though you are the one who's studying, Sister Lebuni, but who gives you the strength to study? It's God. So the major reason why it must stress you when you hear a fellow brother bragging and not even mentioning God, isn't it? It's because they are taking the glory and they are taking the limelight away from God. So Paul is actually mentioning this. He says, verse 15, not boasting beyond our measure, that is in others' labors, but with the hope that as your faith grows, we will be within our sphere, enlarged even by you. No, I'm sorry, I went ahead of myself. Verse 13, the last part, he says, we will boast, but within the measure of the sphere which God apportioned to us as a measure, to reach even as far as you. Can you see? He mentions God all the way, ne? It's God who has enabled us. It's God. I'm humbled by even the extent to which our ministry has actually stretched. Verse 14, for we are not overextending ourselves as if we did not reach to you, for we were the first to come even as far as you in the gospel of Christ. This is another thing, guys, that these critics were saying. You know what these critics were saying? They were actually boasting about the Corinthians, claiming that it's their work. Ne? Yeah, it's us who did it. So Paul is saying, we were the first ones to do what? I was the first one to preach, to plant the seed. You remember what does it say in 1 Corinthians 3? I planted the seed. Apollos did what? He watered. And God gave what? The increase. Guys, this is the thing about people who like bragging. Usually people who like bragging about even the things that they haven't accomplished, isn't it? How many of those students, guys, when we were still in matric or secondary, who used to come, there was this guy who used to, he used to give us a problem. He would come with his brother's BMW. Oh man, Justice did not even have a gate. Where he comes from? The only gate was for pedestrians, to show that there is no way. I mean, this guy would come. I mean, these people who like boasting, brethren, usually when you look at it, they can't back it up. It's usually other people's account. So these guys are bragging about the Corinthians, that we are the ones who have accomplished all this. And Paul is saying, no, but we were the first ones to plant the seed. We were the first ones to come to you. If you don't believe this, go to 1 Corinthians chapter 3. It will tell you that Paul is the one who planted. Verse 15, not boasting beyond our measure. That is, in other words, if I brag about the work in Corinth, I'm not going beyond my limits. I am bragging within what? The limits, because I honestly did it through God. I was able to do it through God. For we were the first to come to, verse 15, not boasting beyond our measure, that is, in other men's labors, but with the hope that as your faith grows, we will be within our sphere, enlarged even more by you. So they were bragging about his work. And he says, when I brag about Corinth, it's the work we have done. But there's something he mentions, which is the last phrase. He says, we hope that as your faith grows, we will be within our sphere, enlarged even more by you. What do you think the Apostle Paul means there? He says, when we brag about you, we're not bragging outside the reach. Ne? It's well within our sphere. But we are hoping that as your faith grows, ne? What will happen as your faith grows? That as your faith grows, we will be within our sphere, enlarged even more by you. Enlarged even more by you. What do you think the Apostle Paul is saying there? That we hope that as your faith grows, we will be enlarged even by you. What is to be enlarged? To expand. To grow. So the Apostle Paul saying, as their faith grows, he hopes that they will. Is it grow, or they will grow him, enlarge him?
I don't know. I think maybe I might be a little bit stretching it, but I'm getting the idea that when they grow, the people grow.
Yeah.
They also will be able to teach others, and that way they increase.
The expansion of the word of God.
No, but you will increase us. What does he say? Hey, these people want to be spiritual on us. Ne? Who is being enlarged?
The area of influence.
Is it the area of influence or the Apostle Paul?
No, the word of God.
Okay, let's read it again. Hey, these people are spiritual. Not boasting beyond our. He's still talking about what? Our measure. That is in other men's labor. We're not boasting about what other people have done. But with the hope that as your faith grows, we will be. We. Who is we? Spiritual. Who's we? Yeah. Hey, they're afraid, this brother. Paul, that we will be within our sphere. Whose sphere is this? Paul's sphere, isn't it? Enlarged even more by you. I will ask this question again. Who will be enlarged here? Okay, read yours. Hey.
Okay. We do not boast beyond limit in the labors of others.
Yeah.
But our hope is that as your faith increases,
Yeah.
our area of influence among you may be greatly.
Who's our?
Apostle Paul and everyone else.
Yes. Okay, read your one. The people are withdrawing their Bibles now. This is a true Bible study. Everyone must come with it. Hey, who did not come with his own Bibles? Yeah, everyone will withdraw his own. Yeah. We're fighting now, it's a sword. Yeah.
Our hope is that as your faith continues to grow,
Yeah.
our area of activity among you will great.
Whose area of activity? The Apostle Paul.
No, the word of God. No.
No. Who? God is God working alone. That's why in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, he says we are in partnership with who? With God. My brother. They will get it. Yeah, let's take it to verse 16. Maybe you'll get it. So as to preach the gospel even to the regions beyond you. Who is preaching the gospel? God. Is the Lord preaching the gospel? Who's preaching the gospel? The Apostle Paul. And not to boast in what has been accomplished in the sphere of another. What is the Apostle Paul saying? When I preach at Hilltop and your faith grows, what happens? What happens when your faith grows and I preach at Hilltop? Okay, let me not use myself. When Brother Martin and when they preach at Hilltop and your faith grows, what happens?
That's what I was saying. I'm stretching it a little bit because...
No, don't add, my brother. Don't stretch. We don't want stretching. And he says, before this happens, before the enlarging happens, we won't move on to other regions. The enlarging must happen first, so that we can move on to other regions. Okay, can I read verse 16 again, Pratabone? Yeah. He says, so as to preach the gospel even to the regions beyond what? You. And not to boast in what has been accomplished in the spheres of another. You remember Paul wanted to go to Rome. Who knows that the Apostle Paul wanted to go and preach in Rome? Yeah, he wanted to go and preach in Rome. He was in Achaia. He was in Achaia and Corinth. And then he says, I plan to go where? To Rome. But before I go to Rome, there must be an enlightening process. There must be an enlightening process. Is Paul now doing what these other guys are doing? Is he bragging now? My brother, are you seriously agreeing that he's bragging? No, there needs to be repentance here. The Apostle Paul bragging. Do you think that as he was preaching, he was hoping that his influence can grow in this congregation? Yeah, he was hoping that as their faith grows, they will begin to trust them, isn't it? Because these false teachers were casting aspersions. These false teachers were actually making people to question the Paul's apostleship, isn't it? So he's saying, as you grow, you may begin to do what? To trust us. Why must they trust the Apostle Paul? So that, and he says, before you like to trust us, we won't move on to preach elsewhere. Why? Is it for his own good? I want you to trust me, yeah? I mean, that would be ridiculous. I'm waiting for you to trust me before I go to other. No. He's actually saying, so that our influence can grow among you. So that when these false teachers come, and they want to unsettle you from the gospel that we have taught, then they find you what? Strong and rooted in the way. Guys, you don't leave the work of God when the church is not doing well. I've seen preachers, hey, this church is not doing well, therefore let me go elsewhere. No, I will not leave you talk if I think the ministry is not where it's supposed to be. Do you know when I will leave you talk? After I've appointed elders and deacons. Yeah, that's my goal. Immediately you hear justice and the leadership have appointed elders and deacons. But don't fire me. I will go on my own. Because the faith of brethren has increased. And so they are not easy. Can you see when he brags? His bragging is not outside of the work, isn't it? He is concerned about these guys who are unsettling brethren in Corinth. So imagine if he had moved on without strengthening brethren. What will happen? These false teachers will come and destroy the work, isn't it? And there's something interesting about Paul. Do you know Paul did not preach? Hey, this is very interesting. Do you know that Paul did not preach where others have preached?
Yeah, I think
It says here, ne? But do you know where else it says it? Romans chapter 12. Romans chapter 12. I'm sorry. Did I say Romans 12? Romans 15, I'm sorry. Verse 20. And thus I aspire to preach the gospel, not where Christ was already named, so that I will not build on another man's foundation. The Apostle Paul. Yeah. If I hear that Brother Martin was preaching there, I will not go there. Ne? That was his preaching methodology. He doesn't go where, if he goes there and hears that no, other apostles have preached there, he does what? He doesn't go there. He goes where? He goes where? Because he doesn't want to build on others what? Foundation. There is a preacher from America, but he's not in the church. This guy, when he has one of the biggest churches there, and when he was preaching and planting the congregation, he used to say, I don't know, do you know Rick Warren? Eh? He says, when I went to do door knocking, I did not preach. If I knock and I find out, hey, are you a Christian or not? He says, if you say I'm a Christian or I belong to another congregation, he says goodbye. And he will knock next door. Next door you say, are you a Christian or not? No, I'm not a Christian. He will start doing what? Preaching there. Is that what the Apostle Paul is saying here? So if a person has heard about Christ, you don't teach them, ne? Is that what he's saying here? Hey, Mina brother, I don't preach people from other denominations. Ne? I only preach people who haven't heard about the Lord completely. Is this what the Apostle Paul is saying here? Do you evangelize your denominational friends? Do you have friends in the denominations? Do you teach them the gospel? Yeah, teach them. Ne? Yeah. They haven't heard Christ. Ne? My brother is saying, oh, they have. No, they haven't heard Christ and Him being crucified. You preach there. But actually the point he's trying to make here is that whatever work is there, he deliberately and intentionally made sure that he starts the work. Ne? But he was okay with other people doing what? Even though he was not okay with himself working on the foundation of others, but he was okay with others working on his foundation. You remember what does he say? I planted, Apollos did what? Watered, and God did what? He increased. Can you see the Apostle Paul? Yeah. So, Paul is just mentioning this to defend his apostleship. The last two verses before we close, he says in verse 15 of in chapter 10, verse 17, but he who boasts is to boast in the Lord. For it is not he who commends himself that is approved, but he whom the Lord commends. Guys, before I sit down, I want to tell you that we live in a time where people will tell you to sing your own song. Ne? Yeah, if you don't praise yourself, nobody will. Have you ever heard people saying that? Oh, don't be apologetic. You must, yeah. Some of you will even use affirmation. You know affirmation? I was speaking to the ladies. I'm beautiful. I'm handsome. You know those affirmations. Every morning they tell you to say that. I am handsome, even when the mirror says different. I am beautiful. I am intelligent. I am all these things. Have you ever heard affirmations? Ne? We live in a society, guys, that is all about commend yourself. Ne? Praise yourself. Sister Manamela, do you do those things? You are old for that. Ne? Yeah. Hey, these young ones, when they're in the mirror every morning, I am beautiful. I am intelligent. Even when the script at school suggests otherwise, I am the most intelligent person. Eh? We live in a society that says you need to do what? Commend yourself. Listen to what the advice from the Apostle Paul. For it is not he who commends himself that is what? Approved. But he whom the Lord commends. If you're praising yourself, if you're praising your own accomplishments, what you have done, what you have achieved, the Bible says the Lord does not approve of you. You disqualify yourself of being a child of God. The Lord approves people who are approved by Him. It doesn't matter what you think of yourself. It doesn't matter what other people think of you. What matters is what God thinks about you. Ne? Guys, can I repeat that? Ne? Ladies, I hope I didn't disappoint you. Ne? It doesn't matter what you think of yourself. It doesn't matter what others think about you. What is more important is what God thinks about you. Hallelujah. Don't be disheartened. Hey, now people don't like me. No, God is not in the business of using you because people like you or not. Ne? God will still use you whether people like you or they don't. Because what matters is what? Him. So the question I want to leave you with, what do you think God says about you? Does God like you? Very much. Does God like you, brother? He doesn't like me, He loves me. Brethren, if we were still trying to please people and be approved by people, we will not be servants of God. Amen? What makes you a servant of God is that God is pleased with you. Joshua and Caleb, if God is pleased with us, we will conquer the land. They didn't say if people are pleased with us. Ne? Get rid of approval addiction. Some of you are addicted to people's approval, to your parents' approval, to your preacher's approval. In Pinot, Uncle Batman says, I used to be offended if the preacher does not greet me. Ne? He says, we will queue after Brother Elhorn, just so that Brother Elhorn can approve of us. He says, I realize that's not. What is important is whether or not God approves me. Whether justice likes you or not, it's immaterial. Ne? What is immaterial is that God loves you. Now I will sit down by force. Ne? Yeah, amen. Brother, please pray for us. Brother Joy. It doesn't matter whether I don't